Hello! Today I'd like to show you my workflow, how I go from having just a stupid idea for a story in my head to writing an actual script, taking that script, breaking it apart, doing narration, creating all the assets I need, like backgrounds and props and whatnot, new characters, to putting it all together in Moho or in the Compositor, which I also do, and also then editing the whole stuff and exporting it into all the formats I need to put them on. I've done a very similar talk a while ago when Moho, the animation software that I'm using to create most of Phungus Mowld, when Moho asked me to do a web seminar. So there might be a bit of overlap. You might have seen some of the stuff already, and I might talk about things I haven't mentioned there because of lack of time. Let's dive right in. Okay, so the first thing I do when I have an idea is I'm using, for now, Notion to jot down ideas. Yeah, go away, it's not the one. I don't want to do any spoilers here. So if I go to Phungus Mowld, I have this, I have a wiki, by the way. In this wiki, I keep most of the info that I need. Hello, why is this? No, it's being slow today. I have characters, the descriptions, they link to certain episodes, so I know which character appears in what episode. So here are characters. The checkbox here marks that I actually use those, so I can't really change them arbitrarily anymore. The stuff which I haven't used is either a character I'm planning to use, or these are characters that I just keep around. Cool names that I think like, yeah, might want to use that someday. Same for planets, same for races, same for ship names. I gotta keep track of this stuff, otherwise I'm get really confused. Organizations like companies, military groups, whatever, everything I mention anywhere in the script goes in here so I can keep track of it. Locations, that includes space stations, planets, bars, you know, the infinity space bar, whatever. Techno babble, yes, even that, if I tend to repeatedly use certain fictitious elements like arsonium or kickassium or something, I want to keep track of it, so to make sure that I'm using the right fake term. And stuff like drugs and cocktail names. Cocktail names are important because, of course, Phungus is a barkeeper and wants to become the greatest barkeeper in the galaxies. Okay, so this is where I keep my wiki in case I need to double check on something I was thinking of and I don't remember what is the last version I actually had. How did I use this? How did I end up using it? Sometimes you have ideas and sometimes I create a huge worldview around some character or race, and last minute I make changes which completely turns things over, and I remember only the more elaborate older version, and so I always have to make sure that I can keep written track of these things so I don't mess up my story. I have episode data in here, and this includes a bunch of drafts and quick ideas. So there is once an episode is finished, like Dead Angle here, for example, I have the log line here. This is this quick summary that you use. Then producer, director, and so on. I have some links to who or what locations or what persons appear, important persons appear in that episode. I put the trailers in here just in case, and then there is the credits which go at the end of the episode, just to make sure it's all in right order and everything. So that's a finished episode. For a non-finished episode like the one I'm working on right now, Origins, and this spoiler alert, I'm probably going to blur out some of the text here. I have some ideas of what are the pieces of music I'm going to use here. There is a non-disclosed preface which kind of sets the whole thing, what we're talking about. Then here, these are like fonts that I could use for the logo for Xander's bar, for a bar that I'm going to use in the story. So again, I'm a typographer, so fonts are important for me. I want to have something that meets the theme. I don't have to, once I research those fonts and say I'm going to use that one, I don't want to have to search again and where was it and which one was it. Just put it all in there. And then the beats, which is like a bunch of, as you jot it down, certain things that are going to happen in the story. possible alternate versions if I need more footage, or if you want to give it a twist. Or so a big part of these stories, even if when I write the script, then are still not completely set in stone, because of course I can always re-narrate, I can always record the narration. I'm a one-man operation. I don't have to spend money on that. I just sit down with my mic and just redo a bunch of scenes. So I can be much more flexible and ad hoc than like a huge team, which have to really basically define every single second of the damn movie. And that's why they have to do all these storyboards and very clearly make, oh, this is the camera angle and this is the framing I want. And so they can just nail it. You don't want to spend any extra dollar or extra whatever your currency is on having to recreate stuff just because the description of the scene wasn't clear enough. That would be a waste of money, of course. But I'm not paying myself for this. So for now I can be chaotic and ad hoc and ad lib and whatever. If I think it serves the story better, if I animate something, find actually, yeah, this is a bit lame, the pacing is not good, I might rewrite that scene and just redo it. And that would probably be impossible with a studio with a budget. So you really have to make up your mind what you're going to do, and that's why they also read all the scenes with the actors to make sure they really work and they sound good. Do it 100 times before they even record one sound bit for the narration. That is that. So I have these jotted down points, and then I normally would go. So I use Slugline, and I have a template for writing scripts. It's a 3-act template with its standard points. You know, there's Act 1, there's inciting incident, there's the plot point 1, Act 2, and so on. And I move those jotted notes into the right places. I just copy and paste them over. And then I start writing maybe any scene that I feel like, oh, this is a scene I could flesh out. This is a scene I can vividly imagine right now. Start writing dialogue or writing out the scene, what's going to happen. Sometimes it's just an action scene, but I have an idea like, oh, this is going to move like this, it's going to do that. And I'll just do that. And so the script gets fleshed out piece by piece, becomes bigger. And maybe you have noticed up here, this part here, is the page counter. And that is really important because this archaic looking format, let me show you a full script of episode 1 maybe, completed. No, the second one, Astral Endeavor, is fine. So if I look at Astral Endeavor, you see this format here, and this is the standard format for screenplays used in Hollywood. Maybe there are other formats elsewhere. And the good thing is if you use specifically this font and this formatting, you get only roughly 1 minute of film per page. So if it says 30 pages up here, and that would mean I have about 30 minutes of footage. And once the whole script is done, what I would do first is actually look through the script again. I have all the locations, so I make a list of new backgrounds I have to do. Maybe some of these locations, if it's the cockpit of the Ponko 2, I can just reuse whatever I've made. Maybe I want to tweak it a bit, but I don't have to create this new. So I would make a list of stuff I have to create for this episode. Like, oh, there's a new planet, have to make a new backdrop. Maybe I have to show the planet from space as well. So I have to create a new planet, how it looks like, the location itself, and if there are any kind of locations on the planet, internal ones, I have to think about how many of these do I have to make. Is it 1 room, 2 rooms, is it several angles of the same room, etc. pp. And of course props. So like in that room, is there a table, is there a chair, do the characters hold stuff in their hands? And all this stuff I have to go through the script, and it's what you call a breakdown of a script, where you actually break it down into all the pieces, the props, the people. Maybe someone has to wear something different than normally. Maybe Mowld has suddenly torn clothes or is wet, and you have to change his rig. And then you make a list of all the items you need to create. And that list would look a little bit like something like this. Just a second. So I love Kanban software to organize myself. God, this thing is slow. And the one I'm using right now here is called Aura, and I've used about any Kanban software you can think of. And there's several ones I love, and I'm still not decided on which one I really want to keep using, because as long as you're alone, it doesn't really matter. They're all great. And most of these apps give you a free version if you just use it alone. That's why I'm kind of going back and forth. But I always think about the day, maybe, hopefully, one day, when I get a team, and I have to start using this stuff as a teamwork, and then I have to think about costs and how much is it going to cost and how awesome is it. And there is one thing, open source app I installed on my own server, which I use, but it felt a bit clunky, stopped using it. It was called Leantime, it's called. I tried Quire.io, all links down below you can find, which I find is actually the best UI and the best experience for me. But it's a bit pricey. It's like $10 per person or something if you have a team. And Aura is almost as good and has some strengths which the others don't have. It can even have time management and God knows what. And it's about $5 or $6 if you're working in a team. So I thought, like, well, just starting off, this might do it. So here is my list. So you've got these columns which actually jot out the state of things. So like if it's blocked, it means I can't work on it because something else first needs to be done. It's blocking this. There is a to-do one, which basically means, well, damn it, do it. In progress means I'm working on this right now. And review, I'm reviewing myself, but I still put all this stuff in review because I usually, once it's done, I need a bit of time away from my work. If it's animation especially, I animate a scene and think, oh, it's awesome. I sleep one night over it and we'll watch it again the next day. It's like, oh my God, what was I thinking? So you need a bit of distance sometimes. So that's why I still keep a review process, although it's just me doing this stuff. And when I feel this is done, it goes into done, basically. And as you can see, there's quite a lot of stuff. And this is the minimized list, actually. I'm not having everything in there included, like some of the props I don't even list anymore because I know them. I know I need them. But mostly this is like the green stuff, as it says here, artwork. This is the artwork I have to create, backgrounds mostly. And not every task is just one artwork. So if it's one room, I might have several angles to the room, which I then put in there in the description, you know. For example, here, X orbit Lithius Prime. I need the Lithius Prime planet whole. I need Lithius Prime planet with facility surface satellite view. I need a spaceship in orbit because there's a third scene where this happens. And then I need an escape pod for the scene as well. So also a prop that appears in the scene. So here I have a clearer idea of what it is I have to do. And then I work on this stuff. So now, backgrounds. I think if you want to see how I do my backgrounds, you should actually watch the previous vlog because I talk about designing for animation and how I put it together. But just in a very short summary, I often doodle a lot with pen and paper. Just really old-fashioned analog. I sometimes doodle a little bit on Procreate, which is an app on the iPad, which is great for drawing with the Apple Pen. Then I start doing the concept, I call it the concept artwork, which is kind of a rough draft of backgrounds, mostly backgrounds or props if I need them, done in digital. So I take a photo either of the hand-drawn thing or scan it. Then either trace it or make a new interpretation of the same thing, maybe at an angle that I finally want to adjust or something. The reason I do this digitally is because I'm really bad with colors in analog world, so brushes and stuff are my enemy. So I always do colorization in digital form, and I would import the Procreate drawing into Affinity and either trace it as is if it feels pretty perfect, but very often I do yet another interpretation and tweak things in Affinity. And the thing is, in Affinity I don't really draw most of the time. Most of the time I just really trace stuff, and it feels very mechanical, very head heavy. So that's the bar that we had in the first scene. And as you can see here, I've got this chair, and then I can go, if I make one chair, I can just make a symbol, which is like an alias or a link kind of, so it's not a separate graphic. So if I would change that chair, as you can see, all the other chairs would change too. So this is a way to make stuff more efficient. And every single item I have here, I can export as a separate here, for example, for the door to open, or for that door also opens, if you might remember. I can export these as separate items. I export them as PNGs, PNG files with alpha channel. I usually export them in two versions. One is the normal resolution, one is Retina, twice the resolution, just in case I want to zoom in and want to have pixelated stuff. And so that enables me to just quickly fix stuff. If I want to change the line width or something, I can do that really quickly in here, and then re-export just with a few clicks. So you go to the export persona. You can see all the slices I have set up. These are all separate items because you want to put them in 3D space as well. So if the camera does a dolly, you get this nice parallax stuff going on. I would export that in one go. So you can just go, you click and it just goes whoosh, and you have written out 15, 20, 100 files, whatever. And if you want to fix something, you fix it, or whoosh, you can export that. And it's just really quick and easy. Another thing I can start working on once the script is done, apart from the backgrounds, is of course the narration. Once I feel like this script is supposedly final, I would start narrating the whole thing. I used to use GarageBand for quite a while, and I could still use it, but I just found actually that Logic has the one advantage that it's a bit faster with real-time processing. It feels like you can do a bit more heavy stuff there. Another thing that Logic can do actually, which I find very handy, is that it can export all the tracks as separate audio files in one go. Which in GarageBand I have to export every single track separately and have to switch it on and off and on and off. It's a bit tedious, so I just went with Logic eventually. The way I record the audio, you can see there's one track per voice. So there's Phungus, which is of course yellow. Mowld is red, L is in blue. There's a computer voice showing up, Zackety-Phone, a bunch of other people who have small parts. I record all of this in chronological order. At the first time I tried to record every character separately, so I could stay in character. It was easier for me. I wasn't really used to do narration. But then I found it's really hard to get the timing right, because if you have a dialogue, you want somebody to say something, the other one reacts to that, and then you have another reply to that. And eventually, if you re-record it, you have to leave gaps for the other person to speak, and you're not sure how long will it take. Then if you record it, you have to move everything a bit off, so you have enough space that even if you talk a bit slower than you expected, that you don't have your other voice talking over you, which is irritating. And I found it all complicated, so I just said, okay, well, I gotta learn to switch voices and characters in no time. So I really go as the script goes on. So I do a voice of, I'm Phungus, and I really would like to do this, and with some supposedly British accent. And then I would do like a next thing in replies is Mowld. And I have one or two phrases which I often use to get me directly into character right away. Something that sounds typical, feels typical for how I create the voice. I would export this all, as I said, uncompressed as AIFF, separate track for every single voice. So even if there's a voice where somebody says one word in the whole episode, you would have like 99.9% of white gap, and the rest is just to make sure everything lines up nicely when I bring it into the Final Cut timeline. It looks like this. So this is my animatic, which is more like an anistatic. Most of the time it's just static stuff and just really roughs, or sometimes just pencil drawings I throw in there, so I have an idea of what scene this is. And when I put in the narration first, what I actually first do before I have all of this stuff, is nothing's animated yet, yeah? So what I do is figure out the proper timing of the whole episode. How long is it actually going to be? Because when I record the narration, I just do some guesswork as to how long this pause has to be. Say somebody says something, he draws his gun and does something, so I just guess or I do the movement. So I would say something. I can't make up dialogue on the fly. And I'm gonna shoot. It's like, I don't know. You mean it's for pussies? I shoot to obliterate. Okay, that's the pause we just needed for that. And I put the pause in the narration, but it often turns out when you animate it, it's actually, it's too long, it's too short, you tweak it a bit. And then you want to adjust for that. And that's what you do in Final Cut. So in Final Cut, I listen to the whole thing on my headphones and try to imagine the scene as it happens and start tweaking the timing a bit there. So I lay out all these voices, and at that point, they're still all separate kind of tracks completely, with huge gaps in them, audio gaps in them, but the actual track is just a continuous piece of audio track. Then I would take originally some roughs maybe, or if I have them, some final backgrounds, which I put into the scene so I know where I am in that scene, but just backgrounds most of the time, because often it's just dialogue, there's not much happening. So they're standing there and talking, you don't need that as a footage. But if there's a complex scene where characters, are in 3D space placed, and in this scene, for example, I had the camera switch back and forth for like the camera being at the door and the camera being at the window, and so that to make sure I don't forget who is standing where in the room, I place these dummy characters in here. So they're all static, they don't move at all.
Maybe we could twiddle our thumbs.
But there is the audio. And this is just kind of a rough indicator on the angles I'm going to take, because I will still do a lot of different decisions on when to switch the camera, depending on the dialogue and the timing, so there might be much more switching of cameras back and forth. The only important thing here is that the initial camera, or if you change certain scenes where they move, that I just make sure that the characters are in the right location, who is in front of whom, who stands where. And if I in between switch the camera back and forth a few times, it doesn't really matter. Once I feel, okay, this is good, this is kind of what it's going to be mostly, I will export the audio from Final Cut again as an MP3, and I use that as a guidance to do the animation in Moho. So I've done my anesthetic, timing is mostly fixed, I know roughly how long the episode will be. There's only narration in there and maybe one or the other piece of music, usually just the intro music and maybe one or nothing. And I export this stuff as one MP3 file for every scene. Every single scene you saw in the script, if you remember, with those bold headers, I cut them up, every single scene, and export that as an audio file. Okay, let's quit this. So next station would be for me to go to Moho. So S1E2, animation data. So, okay, there's our folks in the cargo bay. And you can see there is audio down here. This is the narration, which I imported, and I use this as a guidance to do the lip syncing and of course the whole animation. I normally start doing lip syncing first because that audio is fixed anyway. It's not going to change, so the lip movement might as well do them. They're not going to change. And I think lip syncing is an important part of facial expression, so I want to have those mouth shapes in there before I do faces and body language and all the other stuff. I still do that manually. There are tools to help you to automate that process. I've even seen one tool that uses AI to take the audio in and you give it the text that is read, and it then recognizes what, based on the text, which audio is which sound, and then puts in markers for the different mouth shapes you have to have, which is all good and nice. I tried it, but it didn't really work that well for me, because the thing is, you don't always form all the mouth shapes for all the sounds that you utter, depending on how quickly you talk. If you speak very quickly, you slur, even with the mouth, you slur these mouth shapes together. And sometimes you just make one mouth movement, but you actually say 3 different sounds. It's just all kind of hidden with the teeth behind your lips. So automation doesn't really work that well for me. The other thing is that I'm using interpolation for the mouth. That means I have mouth shapes, I switch them when those sounds happen. But in between, Moho can actually deform the mouth, so it gets a very fluid, very natural movement. And I prefer that rather than just switching shapes and have this kind of stiff kind of flipping of mouth movements. It feels busier than stuff that moves naturally, which also means I can maximum switch every 2 frames, because I want to have at least one in between, a transition from one mouth shape to the other. And that means I have to think about slurring certain movements or leaving out certain mouth shapes or certain sounds, just thinking, yeah, they'll get it, it'll look fine. And so here is Mowld, for example. Here's his head. Here's his mouth. He has 2 mouths, basically. One is mouth angry, with these shapes here. And one is mouth happy or neutral, with these shapes here. And then I just animate him. I'm just really wondering who's speaking first here. This is Alice who's speaking, who has no mouth shapes. This is, of course, a lazy one. So let me just go. Yeah, this is just about it. Yeah, there we go. So Mowld starts speaking here.
Why are you wearing this?
And so I would go, and I would have the transcript, the script itself, on the same screen, so I know what he's saying. And then I just frame by frame go through every single sound he makes, and then pull up this window here, switch selector, where you can switch the mouse. This is his mouth, as you can see. And go why 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 are you? See, this is thing already. It's all slurred. He doesn't say, why are you wearing this? He says, why are you wearing this? Why are you? It's rare. It's just one slur. So you have to make decisions on what to leave out, what to not leave out, what looks natural. Basically, and you go. And just to do that, and you switch your mouse and you just go step by step. And once you get used to it, it's not as bad as it seems. It's not as much work as you might think. You get used to it. I know where the mouse shapes are on this dial here, and it's not so bad. And in the end, I think several people said that my lip syncing is very nice, so it paid off. It was worth it, you know. And I do lip syncing. So lip syncing is done. Next thing is I got to think of, okay, what kind of body language will they have saying these things? Will they face each other? Will he face away from him and being like, I'm not talking to you? Will he point at him? Will he point somewhere else? All these things. What does Alice do while the other guys are talking? Is he just going to stand there? Is he going to turn around and start fumbling with the computer? Lots of things to decide here, and it all happens at that point in time. So I didn't really make up my mind much about the interactions in detail. Sometimes there's a certain scene where I know, okay, he's totally going to do this pose because it's funny, but that's about it. And all the rest, all the smaller stuff, like scratch your head, you do this like, whoa, what the hell, or whatever, all happens ad hoc. And of course you always have to think about, would that be in character? Is he the type to make this kind of gesture or not? It's another thing. And that takes quite some time, because very often I have to redo certain animations because it just doesn't look right. Or sometimes I do the whole thing, I save it and do the next one. And usually I always revisit next day, look at it, edit again. Is this animation actually still good? Because when you're looking, you get this tunnel view, you know, when you do only this one scene, this movement, you get so used to seeing it that you think it looks good. But when you then have a good night's sleep and look at it with a pair of fresh eyes in the morning, you might find actually it's just doesn't click, it's not good, and then you redo it or you tweak it or whatever. So I revisit these animations a few times. It's not like I just animate it through and I'm done and go on the next one. This scene is all done in Moho, but there are some scenes which I have done with a compositor, for example, from episode 1. Let me see. What happens here is I have animated characters like this. So I place all these objects in Apple Motion in a 3D space, similar to Moho, but Motion does this much quicker. It does a lot of the rendering in almost real time because it uses my external eGPU, which I have on my laptop. I have a Vega 64 in a Razer Core X enclosure, and the door going up. This is done in Motion with a mask and everything. I have a mask that has the door shape, and then I move the door up. The smoke is done in Motion here, for example. And these characters I have animated in Moho and exported as an image sequence with Alpha Channel, so I can place them in 3D space. So if I, for example, go here, perspective, you can see, oh, it's all flat. There's well, back then I didn't really do much 3D stuff, so some scenes I actually put in 3D space. This is hilarious. Okay, so I just put all the stuff on a flat background and put it together, and yeah, you can see this whole hangar. You never see the rest of the hangar eventually. Another thing, I made this whole damn hangar, and it turns out I'm only using the left half of it. Well, such is life, I guess. So yeah, so I have this thing here coming down, ship landing, and she walks past by, and they talk, blah, 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 blah. And then I render all of this stuff out. There are other scenes I do like this, where I have them actually placed in 3D space. What a disappointment, man. And then render out the final thing. I want to do this more because this allows me to put actual lights in the scene. And so I can have a bit more mood control, change the atmosphere, and I want to do this a bit more in the future, because generally my illustrations, the backgrounds are really, they feel flat, and it's all so flat lighting. There's little moody lighting, and I would want to put a bit more of a dense atmosphere in there, and I probably can do this with some colored lighting lamps and different shades and shadows and stuff, which I do in Moho because it's faster, and not in Moho, in Apple Motion, because Motion does shadows and lights, Moho doesn't. Moho can do particle generators and all this 3D stuff, but no real lighting. And so use the tool that does the job, basically. I'm not totally married to just do everything in Moho, especially since the rendering speed could still be a bit better. But yeah, I just tried to make it work. So you might think, okay, I've rendered out all the scenes, I replace the scenes in Final Cut Pro with what I want to do, and then I export the movie and I'm done. Yay! No. You forgot one important part in Final Cut. What's still missing is, for one thing, all the sound effects and the music. This is the final episode, and you see there's tons of layers because all the audio. The orange stuff is music. The yellow stuff, yellow-greenish stuff is sound effects. Very often it's just a background hum in the spaceship, you know, that you have all the time, or it could be footsteps, or it could be splashes, or switches flipping, and all this stuff. And I get most of these sound effects, either I use the ones which are already in Final Cut Pro itself. You know, there's this sound effects. They're pretty good, the ones in here. But they don't cover everything. So especially for wind and natural sounds and footsteps, there's not so much in there that you can use. And for that, I frequently visit freesound.org, which is a, come on, this is so slow, a great site to get sounds. Be aware though that not all sounds are completely free, as in public domain. So some want to give them credit in your movie, and some of them are public domain. You can just use them, do whatever you want with them. Anyway, this is an absolute treasure trove of great sound effects. You just have to have some patience to find the right one. There's a lot of crap in there as well, but you know, don't look in a gift horse's mouth. And this is one of the things I really visit frequently. It's super important. So I put in all the sound effects, got in the music. Music is difficult. I usually try to use public domain music, except for the main theme of Phungus Mowld, which I made myself in GarageBand. It's easy enough, so I might do that. So I have the rights to it forever and ever. And then I have to put in subtitles, which you probably won't do. Most people don't do subtitles, but as you know, I am from Germany. I want to have German subtitles in there for one thing here. So this is the stuff up here. And I also put in Japanese subtitles, because otherwise my kids couldn't, my younger son especially, doesn't speak German, and his English isn't no, it's just very basic, so he needs that still. So got Japanese subtitles in there. Then I export the whole damn thing, as I said, ProRes 42 HQ. I export the subtitles as SRT files, which are just plain text files. And one more thing I do, you usually upload those subtitles to Amazon. It recognizes the format, can use them right away as is. One more thing I do, however, is I export a smaller version, because on my own site where I sell the movie as a download, because of technical restrictions to my hosting and PHP setup, I cannot have larger files than 500 megs. That means I have to compress it quite a bit, so I make one MPEG-4 version that is just below 500 megs, just below. And then I have to embed those subtitles in the MPEG-4 file, and there's a cool free tool called Subler, this thing here. I use this so I can just open one, for example, here. And when you open an MPEG-4 file, you can see all the tracks in there. This is one which is already complete. So this is episode 2. So there's an English subtitle track, so closed captions. There's a German one, Deutsch, Nihongo, with the Japanese subtitle track. There's the video track. And you could just drag and drop an SRT file on this and then save the thing. And it'll just embed the subtitle track into the MPEG-4 movie. Great. And the way this will look like is, if you open this in QuickTime Player, you have your subtitles here to switch, and you even have, I put these in Final Cut, you have chapters here as well. I put these chapters in not really for your convenience, but if I ever in the future get lucky enough to get a cable deal or something, they want to have those chapters so they know when they can put in the advertisements, the commercials. And even if you use a player like Ina, which is an open source MPEG-4 player which uses FFmpeg, it does recognize the subtitles here, English, German, Japanese, and it does somewhere, chapters, show chapters panels here. Oops, there's a chapter. So see, I have all the chapters here as well. So that is great. So you get all the...
Coffee, that's your strategy.
There you go. I'm still not done because, okay, I've now finally uploaded my final episode to hosting sites, to Vimeo on demand. But how could you ever know they exist without any kind of trailer or anything else? Okay, so this is a trailer, and if you look at the music, do you see all these dots here? These are the downbeats. So I put those downbeats in there so I can cut the scenes just in pacing with the music. So when it goes, you can have always on important beats, you can have cuts or switches or something happening. Makes it much more engaging, and so it's an old trick that you always make sure that the music is in sync with the cuts. And then suddenly you decide, I'm going to use a different piece of music, and you have to recut everything. Done that, been there, shit happens. And once you have your trailer, or 2 trailers, or more trailers, depending what you need, you have to put them on all the different social platforms. You have to announce that, oh, hey, a new episode is finally out. Hope you keep your fingers crossed. And one more thing you have to do is then, once you have your trailer, you have to make a vertical version for friggin' TikTok and maybe Insta, because they don't want to go look at this like this, you know. And then that's a lot of work too. It takes another maybe a day or so, because you can't just say I'm just going to cut the sides off and that's it. No, you have to change the framing. So you have to adjust it for every single scene, for every cut. You have to go, oh, I want to take this part vertical, now this part, now this part. Lots of work. And then you're hopefully finally done with your episode, got the word out, and then you start all over again with the next episode. So you think about, okay, got to start thinking about beats and jotting down ideas for the next episode. Or I usually have a rough outline of all episodes of this season and 3 for the next season. But still, there's so much to flesh out and to think about. You might have noticed that it's actually much darker in here than when I started this video, because here's my window and I had some natural light going on. Unfortunately, that is all gone now because it's evening. It's like 5 o'clock. So I have to call it a day. I hope you got a rough idea of how my workflow works. I want to actually go through the rigging process, how I put together a rig for, unfortunately, not the main character, they're more complex, but some of the sub-characters I'm going to use in a new episode. But that will have to wait until I have rigged them. So when I rig them, I will do screen captures and all. But I'm still in the dreaded background drawing phase, so it's still a few weeks or months ahead. And then I will make an episode where you can see how I rig my characters and how that works in general in Mowld. See you, have a nice one, enjoy the rest of the day.